So what's happening inside ARM is we are shifting away from being largely known for smartphones to being around the cloud and AI data centers, where in a few years, that's our largest business by far. And in 5 years, it'll be orders of magnitude larger than what we do in smartphones.
For the first time, ARM designing its own chips, its own CPUs, the whole package, and you're working with Meta for this. How significant is that for this company as a strategy?
I think it's very significant. When we looked at the opportunity, particularly in the data center, with the growth of AI, but more specifically agentic AI, and agentic AI quadruples the demands on CPUs, we looked at two things. Number one, this is a market that's heavily underserved at the moment. And number two, customers are asking us, would you deliver and build a chip for us? So to your point, yes, we now have our first product. It's ARM's product. It's the ARM AGI CPU. Designed by ARM, built by TSMC, sold to customers like Meta or SAP or Cloudflare, OpenAI, a litany of customers that we've announced. And the demand has been extremely strong.
What is the potential size of this new revenue stream, of this new market for you?
When we look at the royalties in our traditional business model associated with the cloud and AI business, it's about a $3 billion TAM. When we look at the potential of this product line, maybe stretching out 4 or 5 years, it's north of $100 billion. So it is profoundly different in terms of the scale. It puts us in a whole different zip code.
Semiconductors have increasingly become a tool of geopolitics as well. How challenging does that make your role as CEO of a company that has that global scope?
5 years ago, maybe a little bit less, it wasn't something we worried about. We may have had people inside Washington or inside working with people at number 10 to make them aware of the technology, but it wasn't something that was, top on the radar. Visiting Washington or getting to know the folks inside DCMS inside the UK, that was not something that as CEOs that you had high on your priority list of things to do. That's all changed.
Do you think governments understand where the real leverage is in the chip stack?
I think they're increasingly learning that. I would say 10 years ago, not so much, but they've certainly added lots of capability in terms of people. If you look at the U.S. government in particular, in the current administration, they've added David Sachs, who is the AI czar, and under David's team, he's put a tremendous amount of capability and people to go off and learn that. Same thing under Peter Kyle and then Liz Kendall in the UK.
And you're stewarding this technology that underpins billions of devices. Do you personally, Rene Haas, feel the weight of that responsibility? Are there moments when you think, wow?
When you're in it on a day-to-day basis, you don't really think about that kind of scale. But sometimes when I step back and when we're talking amongst the teams, we're preparing some materials for a launch, and we try to communicate the scale of what ARM does, and we come up with a number of 350 billion chips. And people like to talk about, well, how many chips does a certain person use? 350 billion chips. There's 117 billion humans that ever lived on Earth, ever, and we're 3 times that number.
That scale is enormous.
Yeah.
One of the fascinating parts of the ARM story is the nature of the business. So headquartered, of course, in Cambridge, United Kingdom, majority owned by SoftBank, publicly listed here in the US. How do you navigate having to meet quarterly earnings with Masa Yoshihira's grand sweeping visions of how this kind of tech plays out?
Yeah, I have a fortunate job in some senses in that SoftBank, Masa, is a 90% owner of ARM. So I have investor meetings quite frequently with my chief shareholder. But he's very long on ARM, hasn't sold a share since we went public, is very, very long on the potential. So it helps make my job in some ways easier, Tom, in the sense that he has a long-range vision, as do I. Technology, we always know, is a long game. It's not a real quarterly game. So it allows me to have some freedom to think about the long term without having a wide cadre of investors who worry about what's going on inside the quarter. Thankfully, the quarters have been very good, and we've met and or raised guidance nearly every quarter since we've gone public.
What's going on with Stargate? OpenAI, Oracle, they seem to be pulling back on some of their commitments around Stargate, which is this massive infrastructure commitment for the US, but also outside the US as well.
Yeah,
is that starting to falter? Are you concerned about what's going on with Stargate?
No, not at all. I mean, we, SoftBank, just put a large investment into OpenAI of the last round. They're going to be using a lot of that capital for more compute. OpenAI is a magnificent company, and I think their growth potential is literally unbounded. Compute is what will limit them. So they're needing more and more compute. There's been a lot written about Stargate, but Stargate is a complex program. I think the noise made around the Stargate thing stumbling has been a bit overblown.
Apple is a big customer, big client, clearly, of ARM. Has Apple lost the AI race, do you think, Rene, or are they going to be fast follower? What's your take?
Too early to tell. We are still in very early days of this AI race.
Where do you stand on the question of AI and jobs? And a company like ARM, are you going to be, in 5-10 years' time, are you going to have more employees or fewer?
The way I think about AI eliminating jobs is when you think about, again, let's use agentic AI as an example, right? An agent can go off and run a job or run a piece of work for you. And one might argue that, well, that's going to eliminate jobs because all that work is now being done by an agent. But as long as there are people coming up with creative ideas and are imaginative about how to grow, what more can be done, what new product could I design, things could just happen a lot faster. So inside ARM, we are pushing it heavily. I'm pushing it very, very heavily, not to reduce OpEx. It is to design products faster and to design better products quicker and innovate and have more products. Because right now, my limitation for developing great products is the amount of engineers that we have. That is my biggest limitation. And right now, AI hasn't solved that. And it's not to replace the engineers because we've got no shortage of ideas. I've got tons and tons of ideas that we talk about in our leadership team meetings where we look at it, gosh, we'd love to do X, if only. So I'm much more an optimist on this, and I think so long as companies can come up with creative ideas on what to do and build, AI is going to suit us quite just well.
I spoke to ASML's CEO, Christophe Fouquet, a few months ago, and he said he was pretty damning about Europe's place in the semiconductor industry. He says Europe has no real capabilities to compete with the US and with China. Do you agree? Where can Europe compete when it comes to semiconductors?
I think Europe has fallen behind, in this space. I think when you look at the amount of innovation that takes place inside either the U.S. Or China, Europe has fallen behind. I think some of it isn't actually at the big company level. I think some of it is at the startup company level. In other words, companies that can get funding, early funding, do innovation, attract really smart people to go off and build companies and be entrepreneurial. For whether the reasons are there's not enough capital, or that capital is not organized well enough, or there's something that is making founders go move elsewhere. So I don't think it's a lack of talent. I think it's some lack of infrastructure to nurture the companies to start in Europe and stay in Europe.
When it comes to the data center story, when do you think you'll be able to declare victory? What for you is success? You've, again, shifted ARM to have a laser-like focus on data centers to build out that market. When can you call that a win, do you think?
Well, on one level, I think it's a win now in that we've got real customers, Meta, SAP, Cloudflare, Cisco, as I mentioned. So on level 0, it's a win. Going forward, I think there's lots of opportunity to do much, much, much more. The aperture for the opportunity for ARM has just got much, much, much wider. I mentioned north of $100 billion for this AGI CPU product. But if we think about the broader market, it could be north of $1 trillion that we could address.